The tension between living your life submitted to God's will versus having plans and working out your purpose on this side of eternity. This is something that trips up a lot of Christians. A lot of Christians said, hey, I'm saved now. I got my hell insurance. I'm waiting for Jesus to come back. And others are like, hey, but I still believe God has a vision and a plan for my life on this side of eternity. And these two Christians will often argue with each other. Sometimes the Christians over here that don't want to have a plan, that don't want to do anything, accuse the other ones of having the prosperity gospel. And the Christians that are like, but I want to make something of my life on this side of eternity will point to the other ones and saying, you guys are living a poverty gospel. This is just one big hot mess. And then they'll point to Jesus saying, don't store treasures for yourself where moth can rust for and get them. Store up treasures for yourself in heaven. And then the others will say, yeah, but the proverb says that a righteous man will leave an inheritance. And so all of this culminates in a lot of confusion and cognitive dissonance happen. And we love these false dichotomies. But the truth is that the scriptures don't need to take a false dichotomy, that the scriptures oftentimes articulate and clearly share both. And that's what we're going to get into today on today's proverb. Now, there's the proverb from chapter 19. Okay, let me pull it up here. And we're going to be going over chapter 21, the daily proverb for the day. I want to sauce it up for you guys and make sure that we're really getting it. So I'm going to go, if you guys didn't know, I have an entire channel on my Instagram called Daily Proverb Devotionals where I drop these, okay? And so the proverb, the previous day, is Proverbs chapter 19, verse 21. And check this out. This says, many plans are in a person's heart, but the advice of the Lord's will stand, right? Many plans are in the person's heart, but the advice of the Lord's will stand. So we see that people make plans and we have our own plans, but it's ultimately God's will that will stand, right? And we know that there's all kinds of things that we can think about our heart, but ultimately it's God's will. Now check out in the very next chapter, when we go down to verse 5, it says, a plan in the heart of a person is like deep water, but a person of understanding draws it out, okay? Another translation of it is, the purpose of a person's heart are deep waters, but one who has insights draws them out. And so this is what I want to get to today, okay? So when we're talking about insight and plans in the heart, okay? Proverbs is clearly acknowledging that people are going to have plans and purpose for their life and things that they want to do. It's not rebuking it. You having a plan, you having a desire is not being rebuked. It's being redirected. In James, it says that we should not say, we're going to go do this, we're going to go do that. We should say, if it is the Lord's will, then we'll go do this, we'll go do that, right? That's in James, I believe in James chapter 1. But in today's Proverbs, acknowledge that plans are in our heart. And here's the word for plan in Hebrew is isa, right? Which is often a better translation of counsel, advice, or purpose, right? Isa. Better translation is counsel, advice, or purpose. And the word for understanding, that second word there, but a person of understanding, is tabun, okay? Understanding, intelligence, the act of understanding skill, okay? So we know that a person has a plan or a purpose in their heart, right? But it's like deep waters. It's like deep waters. If we think about the submersible that went super deep into the Atlantic, it's like deep water, deep that the eye cannot see. But it says a person of understanding, and that word understanding is a type of understanding, a type of intelligence, a type of ability to extract advice that is a skill. So you have to have the skill to draw out the purposes that are deep in your heart, the purposes and the plans that you have in your heart, that it's not just a one-to-one, you have a plan and you go execute it. There's a skill to extracting that value. And so as we're thinking about these things, in my life, I could think of a few times. This is one of the new pieces from the He is Him collection, Jesus the King. When you wear this shirt, you do two things. One, you remind yourself in your life who the King is when you put this thing on. Two, you represent who the King is when you go out in public. So get ready for the He is Him collection, available this Friday to Sunday only, where I would have a vision to do something. I would have an idea of an inkling, but I would have a gap or a capacity gap, a deficit of what I want to do, what I say I want to do, and the deficit between having the skill to extract that, right? I'd have a purpose, I'd have a plan, okay? But it would be so deep, and I would have a a deficit in between the skills and the abilities to go and extract that. Okay. And so if you're considering where you are to where you want to be, where you are to where you would like to see yourself be, the first question is, are you being aligned with God's ways of doing things, right? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The kingdom coming is about God's ways of doing things. It's God's kingdom on earth. Secondly, are we seeking his righteousness? Seek first the kingdom and all its righteousness, and then all these things will be added unto you. So first of all, are we planning by being aligned with God's ways on this side of eternity? And the second is, are we then, after we submit our will to God's will, and we're saying, yeah, but I still have this plan, this heart, this plan, this purpose deep in my heart, are we then taking it and doing the work to extract it, right? The skill of understanding and insight to extract it and make it real, and not just something that's in our head or in our heart, but something that is then fleshed out. That deficit, that gap, is where many of us are standing trying to figure it out. And as I look back and I think about me aspiring to do YouTube, right? You guys see us now, over 360,000 subscribers on this channel, over almost 200,000 subscribers on the other channel. When you approach YouTube, it could be daunting. It could be very daunting. And so I started doing YouTube, believe it or not, in 2015. I started uploading vlogs. You could go and still find my very first vlog. It's June 1st. It was uploaded June 1st, then I re-uploaded it. It's called My Days as a Full-Time Rapper. It was the day after I quit my full-time job. And I had to hone and develop the skill of storytelling, of editing, of understanding how to use live streaming equipment, of understanding how to get people's attention and then impart value so that they would come back, right? And all of that, there was an idea and a vision I had, and I saw the value, but I had a massive deficit with the practicality of those skills and extracting that out of my heart. And then that set me on a course. And I remember making videos, getting better at editing. I remember connecting with other creators who are doing great work and learning how to tell stories better, learning how the algorithm works, learning all these things. And then I remember in 2018, I went to the Think Media conference. Sean Cannell's Think Media, is Grow Video Live, the very first one. I went to that conference 2018. I had 5,000 subscribers. It was August 2018. Okay, so 5 years ago. And I remember getting more and more of the information and then the actual skills that I knew I needed to develop. So back then, believe it or not, we weren't making thumbnails. Thumbnails is one of the things we get the most amount of compliments on, or the most amount of critique on, is our thumbnails. I wasn't even making thumbnails 5 years ago. And so when I sat down at the conference, I had an opportunity to sit with vidIQ. vidIQ was like, yo, you need to make thumbnails. You're playing yourself. Why are you not making thumbnails? So I started doing thumbnails. I started learning how to make thumbnails, right? And the entire journey has been one skill after another to extract the plan and the purpose that I saw, but I had a deficit in the skill set. And so my question for you guys that are watching this, and I know this is uncomfortable to talk about, and I know people check out when we start talking about this sort of stuff, but it's okay, is if you have a plan and a purpose, do you have the skill of understanding and insight to extract said plan and purpose from the deeps of your heart? Are you taking practical steps to figure out what that is? Again, this is all hinging on the aspect of it first being submitted to God, which is super duper important. We can't brush over that. That's key. All right. So that would be my question to you guys, right? That would be my question to you guys, is that as you're digging deep and saying, what do I feel like I'm called to? Is it submitted to God? Is it submitted to God? Are you doing it his way? And are you then doing the practical work, the practical side of, I had to learn how to make thumbnails. First of all, I had to know that thumbnails were that important. One, then I had to learn how to make them. Then I learned how to make them good. Right? So you see how there's a progression to all of this stuff. And I think too many people just want it fast, or they jump from thing to thing to thing to thing without actually going deep on something. And so my advice to you is, if you really want to do something, go deep on it. Like really go deep on it and figure out what that is and develop the skills that go with it. All right? So anyway, those are my thoughts on that. Hopefully that was valuable to you guys. This is one of the new pieces from the He is Him collection, Jesus the King. When you wear this shirt, you do two things. One, you remind yourself in your life who the King is when you put this thing on. Two, you represent who the King is when you go out in public. So get ready for the He is Him collection, available this Friday to Sunday only.